Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we turn to talking about the Democratic presidential candidates in America again, who are now calling for the banning of everything they can think of. But before we get to the lengthy 7-hour CNN town hall, in which a lot of these new banning ideas are coming from, before that though, let's first remember where this authoritarian trend in the Democratic Party started. Earlier this year, the new Democratic darling, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, well, she made a very bold and stupid idea proposal called the Green New Deal, which suggested a number of radical changes to our country. Not only was the reduction of cow farming mentioned, but also Alex's Green New Deal specifically said that cow farts were a threat to our country and the world, a world which she also said would end in 12 years if we didn't listen to her stupid plan. But banning cows was only the start here. Cortez also had lofty dreams of banning gas-powered cars and air travel, two modern conveniences AOC, of course, still enjoys and won't give up herself. But us peasants, we're all expected to walk to work now, and we'll have to catch non-existent trains to travel across the country too, at much slower and less convenient routes and rates. Regardless, fortunately, AOC's Green New Deal was laughed out of the room a few months back, and even when presented to the floor of the Senate for a vote, not one single senator out of 100 voted in favor of this bogus plan. That means even AOC's liberal supporters know the Green New Deal is a joke. And that was all the way back in March too, and things lay dormant on this banning front for a little while as well. But with the election season heating up and many unelectable Democratic candidates competing with one another, seeing who could be the craziest liberal, well, this environment has brought back the banning ideas and mindset, and it's leaving people like me scratching our heads. Why? How can the left keep doubling down on these bad plans over and over again? It's like they want to lose this thing. I mean, as I went over just now, many of these banning ideas had already been batted down, voted no, and lost in the public square a few months ago. But apparently these candidates either didn't get the memo or they really are dumb enough to keep trying a bad idea over and over, even if it keeps failing and even if it lost in votes in government before. Americans don't want more things banned, especially if it's highly unnecessary. And it's not the government's job to curtail our freedom for that matter. Not in America. If anything, politicians should be defending our freedoms and giving us more, not less. Next, let's get to those clips from the Democratic town hall, finally. Here's a bit with Elizabeth Warren, who ironically scoffs at the suggestion she wants to ban stuff. And then, immediately following that, no joke here, but she follows that up with ideas about banning stuff. Check this bullshit out.
Do you think that the government should be in the business of telling you what kind of light bulb you can have?
Oh, come on, give me a break. There are a lot of ways that we try to change our energy consumption and our pollution. And God bless all of those ways. Some of it is with light bulbs, some of it is on straws, some of it, dang, is on cheeseburgers, right?
So I guess when Warren said come on about being called out for banning stuff, she meant come on, there's nothing wrong with me banning all this stuff. And the stuff in this situation being old light bulbs, straws, and cheeseburgers. Wow, that's pretty rich. And I'm actually almost speechless here for once. How do I even comment on something and make it better? What's to say here? First, the CNN guy, Fredo Cuomo, he asked if Warren thought the government should be in the business of telling people what kinds of light bulbs they should have. Fair question actually, but Warren's response is a bit more confusing. First she said, oh come on, in a way that implies no, that's ridiculous, the government shouldn't be banning stuff. But then in her next breath, Grandma Liz then says we should ban light bulbs, straws, and cheeseburgers. That might be on the table. What a joke. And talk about lacking self-awareness and lacking a sense of what the American people actually want. Again, we don't want less freedoms. We want more. And we certainly don't want the government telling us what we can buy and what we can eat or drink. At least not like this. Banning things is forcing people to buy into your worldview. And although the Democrats think they are right and they think these things should be assumed to be true, that's just not the way it is. And their overconfidence and the ease with which they become these bossy, authoritarian, dictator-like leaders, well, that should really trouble us all. And isn't it weird how this whole climate change story has become a sort of religion for the Democrats? It's something they believe in wholeheartedly, even though they present no proof or evidence or reports or facts or figures or scientists' studies studies. We're just supposed to believe Democrats when they say they're going to save the environment and they have good reasons and ways to do it. And if we don't listen to them, the world is literally going to end. That's their pitch. And does it sound a little familiar to you? Because there's a reason I call this a new religion for the left. These are the same kinds of approaches and tactics that churches have used to entice new followers for generations. And it's a method they use to keep people around and to indoctrinate their children and future generations too. Nothing scares people more than telling them the world is going to end. And if you also pretend you have a solution to that problem you created, well, that's a bonus. And it's a good reason for young, naive, and dumb people to follow you too. Democrats are doing this now with climate change, make no mistake. And regardless of where my or your beliefs lie on this climate change debate, you gotta admit, Democrats are certainly using this point to try and take over our government and to get more control over everything, including seemingly benign choices in our daily lives like what we eat for lunch or how we drink our sodas. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't like the government making all these choices for me. I prefer them to do less. In fact, I was fine with the government just making sure our roads were clean and our towns were safe, and making sure our military is strong enough to defend the nation. I'm pretty much a minimalist when it comes to the government and its roles and duties, because in the long run, the more the government is involved, the slower and more annoying things become. Just think about how bad it is to go to the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, to get your driver's license. Sure, smaller or regular sized cities, it's not that bad to go to, but it's still pretty annoying. And if you're in a big city like Los Angeles, New York, or Chicago, forget about it. You've got to sit through 3-hour-long lines and waits at a minimum. And that's almost a full day off of work you have to take to get your driver's license or renew it. Now, imagine if the government also ran our restaurants, grocery stores, and hospitals. By the time you wait in a 3-hour-long line for your food, your fries will get soggy and gross, and your ice cream will become all melted, and if you're going to a hospital, you'll probably die from that wound in your gut. I think you get my point. More government means more longer lines and waits, and it's not very efficient or promising. But with that said, let me also take this all one step further before we move on. Imagine if we actually banned cows and or cheeseburgers. That means no burgers, no steaks, no tacos, and no brisket. Banning cows and the products they produce would totally reshape this country from the ground up, in a very bad way, too. Farms would have to change what they produce or they'd go out of business, and many restaurants would shut down, including most fast food ones. No McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, or Wendy's. All we would have left is chicken and salads. Until the next election, that is, when the Democrats will then move to ban those foods too. Eventually, we'll all have to become fully vegetarian if these shitty candidates have their way. And that's not a good idea, nor is it the American way. Cheeseburgers are a staple, basic, common American dish, and it's our signature food too. So, of course, the Democrats hate it and want to ban it. It's because they hate the United States, and they hate the American people and what we stand for and what we like. And that's the only way they could suggest to ban cheeseburgers, because that's a pretty bold suggestion to make with a straight face. But don't just take my word for it. You may think I'm exaggerating or overstating things for dramatic effect, and you may be right in some ways. I do aim to entertain first and foremost, but I also assure you, these are real, actual Democratic propositions that are being suggested in these ridiculous town halls on CNN. We've already heard from Elizabeth Warren, but for another example, here's Andrew Yang saying the vast majority of the world should go vegetarian immediately to supposedly save us from climate change.
Should Americans change their eating habits and eat less beef?
You know, the UN just released a study that said we're going to be okay if the vast majority of the world goes vegetarian immediately. You guys see that? So it's good for the environment. It's good for your health if you eat less meat. Certainly meat is an extraordinarily expensive thing to produce.
Meat's also worth the expense, and I'll take a cheeseburger over a chicken sandwich or a salad any day. This may just be my inner fatty talking here, but trying to take away beef and make everyone vegetarians sounds just plain wrong to me. It's like, hey, we're the best country in the world here. We're on top of the planet in terms of everything, but now, after winning and making it possible for us to eat and do whatever we want, we're really going to then artificially restrict ourselves because it will supposedly save the environment? Please. And I'm not against the environment or stopping global warming either. I just don't think we've seen any good, actual, realistic ideas to fix that yet. All the suggestions the Democrats are making basically amount to them trying to gain power by telling us what to do, and scaring us, and threatening us with the end of the world. They want to develop a sort of nanny state here in America, where the government tells and forces us to live in certain ways, because they claim to know what's good for us. And well, I'm not buying that. And I don't believe some random rich guy named Yang should be telling the world to go vegetarian. And for that matter, I don't believe some former lawyer who pretended pretended to be a Native American should be telling us what to ban here either. I'm of course talking about Elizabeth Warren again, aka Pocahontas. And are we really all going to forget that she took a DNA test that proved herself not to be Native American? Are we pretending that didn't happen? Because it seems like the left wants us to forget about that DNA test, and they want us to forget about the fact that the Green New Deal failed and was voted down already too. Next, let's stick with Andrew Yang, but now we're moving on from the food debate, and we're next going to talk about cars. Here, Yang dodges the question of whether or not the government should force people to drive electric cars. Take a look.
Are we all going to have to drive electric cars?
We are all going to love driving our electric cars.
Will we have to drive electric cars?
Well, there'll still be some legacy gas guzzlers on the road for quite some time, because this is not a country where you're going to like take someone's clunker away from them, but you are going to offer to buy the clunker back and help them upgrade.
Smug response from a pretty arrogant looking man. I don't think he wants to outright say he'll force people to drive electric, nor will he say he's going to ban gas-powered cars, but make no mistake, that's where this is all going. Never mind the fact that electric car technology isn't ready for countrywide adoption. We don't even have enough electric charging stations to support that, nor is it affordable or prevalent enough to implement currently. But also, this idea means that everyone in the US would have to buy a new vehicle if Yang gets elected. Good thing he's the candidate also offering to give American citizens $1,000 a month, but I'm not sure that $1,000 is going to even cover all the expenses he's going to cost us. This bossy authoritarian-like administration is going to give us extra bills and extra taxes to pay too. We're not just talking about buying a new car either. We'd have to buy solar panels one day for our electric at our house, and we'd have more bills to pay for the expensive food they want us to eat, and also we'll get taxed a lot more too, so really that $1,000 a month will be gone real quick. Finally, let's look at one last clip. This is a compilation of all the things Democrats said they want to ban last week. Check this out.
What about the export of fossil fuels from the United States? Would you ban that?
Absolutely, we must get to that point.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
I'm in favor of a carbon-free America.
In my administration, we're not going to build any new nuclear power plants.
We should set out the rules for what kind of plant, coal burning plants. No one's going to build another coal burning. We've got to shut the ones down we have.
Poor creepy old Joe Biden getting in on this banning spree to try and sound like he's hip and in touch with modern liberals. You're not, Joe, and you're probably too old and senile to pull this president thing off completely. I don't know if you'll even make it to the election. Not only has Joe showed noticeable signs of fatigue and loss of mental acuity, as we've seen time and time again lately, but also sometimes he appears lost and doesn't even know where he is, nor can he even remember who his boss was when he was vice president. Yes, in another awkward clip from a recent campaign stump, Biden was struggling to remember Barack Obama's name, and that's only the tip of his I'm getting senile iceberg. And isn't it funny how Trump gets bashed for the littlest things that pale in comparison to old Joe's gaffes here? For example, last week many people tried to nail President Trump to a cross, all because he misspoke about a hurricane being a category 4 instead of 5 or something. Seems like just a little mistake about the specifics of this scientific storm-like situation, something which you or I or the president don't necessarily need to know much about. Leave the weather to the meteorologists, I say, but regardless, Trump was criticized harshly for this technical mix-up. Meanwhile, Joe Biden here doesn't even know what state he's in, nor can he remember the president he served under just a couple years ago. And back to this town hall debate thingy, where Joe is desperately trying to ban cars too to sound cool, but there was also another problem Joe had here with his eye that day. His left eye ended up filling up with blood and turning completely red, right in the middle of this town hall. I don't know if you can tell by this short clip we just watched, but here's another picture where you can see how bad his eye got. Ouch. Not a good look, and yet another blunder for Joe to deal with concerning his health. Fortunately, the mainstream media is in Joe's corner, and they're letting all these big mistakes and signs of age and deterioration go because they're biased hacks who are too busy trying to pretend they're hurricane experts who are completely alarmed that the president said 4 instead of 5.
Let's talk about offshore drilling for oil. Would you ban it?
Yes.
Would you ban offshore drilling?
Absolutely yes. We will transition off of fossil fuels.
We're going to end factory farming because that is a danger to the environment and to climate change. There will be a transition.
So I think it's pretty clear. Democrats want to ban all the things: cars, meat, straws, guns, air travel, borders, free speech, due process, privacy, and of course, they want to ban your money too. And although they seem so sure that their climate change influenced reasoning is sound and just, well, I have to say, I'm pressing X for doubt here. Not only do I question their interpretations of global warming and how to fix it, but also I have big doubts about their actual intentions in the long run. As I said earlier, usually when people try and tell you they're saving the world, well, that's actually just a manipulation tactic being used to get themselves something else entirely. In this case, Democrats are using the threat of extinction as a way to scare voters into voting for them or else we'll all die according to them. And I think their actual goals are far more personal, really. They're more based on greed and not as charitable as you might think, or as they would have you think. Really, these radical leftists just want to get into power so they can control things more and get themselves rich and make America weaker and poorer while they do it. So forgive me if I don't think Elizabeth Warren, Andrew Yang, Kamala Harris, or Joe Biden have our best interests in mind. They don't exactly seem like nice or caring people or the superhero type people that they try and act like. Really, they appear to be charlatans who are using an apocalyptic prediction to try and get their own way and their own people into positions of power and control. What do you guys think? Should we elect Democrats who want to ban cheeseburgers? Is banning all the things really the way we want to go in this country, the United States of America? Comment your thoughts on everything below, and thanks for watching No Bullshit. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see y'all next time.